Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Whenever policies are introduced by the SNP, people with half a brain immediately jump on and point out all the serious flaws with them, but none more so than with the GRR, the Gender Reform Bill. Almost initially on the day of release, there were people saying that this is a bad idea, it's not what people want, they need to be concentrating on other things. But of course, Nicola Sturgeon had to push it through, although it was a green policy, and probably not one that even she agreed with or anything. She had to push it through to keep the Greens on board. And I find that odd, because I would have thought she was strong enough to have had a minority government. But then she would never have got any policy through. Although you could argue that they still haven't, because they've never had any policies. Every policy for the last few years has been a green policy, and that's why they've all failed so spectacularly. If there's one group of people more stupid than the SNP, it's the Greens. Not by much, but by enough. Anyway, it's not as though they weren't warned, and often by their own supporters. But we're going to take a look here at some of the warnings they received, and people begging them not to do it because they'd end up looking like a laughing stock. And indeed, when the government intervened, that's exactly what happened. They were shown to be, basically incapable of pushing a policy through. Anyway, here goes. So the Nats told Humza Yousaf that Nicola Sturgeon's gender reforms made Scotland a laughing stock in a series of letters. This is their own people. This isn't the likes of you and me, normal people with half a brain and a sense of decency. We're talking about Nats themselves. Even they saw how awful this was. Anyway, a number of letters to Humza Yousaf, Keith Brown and Nicola Sturgeon reveal how angered their own party members have been throughout the gender reform fiasco, and that the SNP, they're still pursuing it. They're still going through the courts. Now, of course, you've got this case the other day, Andrew Miller, a man who deliberately dressed up as a woman in order to entice a child into a car, even though Shona Robertson assured everyone that never happens. Now shown to be complete and utter rubbish. It does happen. And yet they're still pursuing this. So it goes to show they have a callous disregard for the safety of women and children. That's who the SNP are now. That they're literally providing women and children up as fodder for these mentally ill, sick predators. But then the SNP are filled with people that are the mentally ill, sick predators. You know, that's the SNP, filled with all the P's, isn't it? Predators, pervs and peds. That's all who they are. So it's no surprise really, is it? Anyway, Nicola Sturgeon and her top ministers were sent a number of scathing letters throughout the Gender Reform Bill prison controversy, with one author accusing her of having a temper tantrum and stamping her tiny little feet, and another branding it shameful. Like I say, these are from their own supporters. It's not as though it's opposition parties or anything, it's just SNP supporters saying this. The letters, revealed through freedom of information legislation, because they were never going to reveal it themselves, were they, came from furious members of the public who say that they've been supporters of the SNP. They centre mostly around Isla Bryson, the male double aura of women who claimed to be trans, although he's not, and was initially sent to a female prison after his conviction, and included reactions to some of the comments from MSPs. When you're sending a man into a prison full of women, and that man's been convicted of R-ing a woman, you have to ask, why are they doing that? Are they so, contemptuous of the safety of women that they're just going to put the fox in the hen house? One letter responded to the former First Minister, branding opponents. This is it. Because Sturgeon branded opponents to her policy as transphobic, deeply misogynistic, often homophobic and possibly racist. Well, it's not transphobia to want to protect the safety of women by, not locking up an aura of women in a room with women. That's not transphobic. Deeply misogynistic? Other way round. We are the ones showing concern for women. It's people like Nicola Sturgeon who are misogynistic because they're showing contempt for women. Homophobic? No, he's not gay. He's a straight man. Yeah, he likes women. He's a man with a penis who likes women. That's not homophobic. He's straight. And possibly racist. Well, I can't help what colour he is, but if he was black, I'd just be as contemptuous of him. If he was Asian, I'd be contemptuous of him. He's white, and I'm contemptuous of him. So there's no racism there. So that's 4 descriptions she uses, none of which are correct. Anyway, it accused Miss Sturgeon of fanning the flames of hostility for transgender women, having looked desperate and a little sad. Well, she is a little sad. She's certainly desperate. And it characterised it as an ad hominem abuse levelled at those who expressed concern for women's safety. Yeah, you can't argue against the point of arguing against women's safety, so you attack the people themselves because, you've got a really great point, and yes, we are callously disregarding women's safety, but you smell, it's that kind of childish argument, really. Scottish Conservative Shadow Justice Secretary Russell Findlay said, "We know that Nicola Sturgeon, Humza Yousaf and other SNP politicians arrogantly ignored concerns about their dangerous self-ID law and belittled those women who were brave enough to speak out." And thankfully, when we've got the likes of J.K. Rowling, who was willing to speak out, who did stand up for the quiet majority who daren't or couldn't for fear of rebuke or even possibly even losing their jobs. He added, "These letters and emails reveal the extent of the public backlash after a double Ara was sent into a woman's prison. Even SNP supporters were among those expressing anger and disbelief at their party's ill-conceived legislation and the disgraceful refusal to listen to common sense. Unfortunately, the SNP are still not listening, as can be seen by Yousaf's decision to waste even more taxpayers' money on a costly court battle with the UK government, which he is now unlikely to win." And especially as, although the judgment has yet to be made, with what happened with the Andrew Miller situation, calls himself Amy George, but he's still a man who just likes to abuse children, but he likes to dress up as a woman to do so. With that in light, and where the court judge, the trial judge himself, said that it was specifically him dressing up as a woman that enabled that to happen. It looks increasingly likely now that that decision will be that the UK government will win, and you cannot do self ID in Scotland like that, which is absolutely the correct decision. Anyway, Mr. Yousaf was sent a letter that said, "From being a fervent supporter of Scottish independence and the SNP, I find myself, like so many others, alienated from what the SNP now stands for, as well as its shameful track record in building a Scotland fit for the third millennium. The Gender Recognition Bill alone has made us a laughingstock of the world." Another direct email to Mr. Yousaf stated, "After the shameful performance of Nicola Sturgeon over redacted, whatever it was being, it beggars belief that the SNP have not got their act together to form a coherent policy over transgender imprisonment for sex offenders. Have you failed to respond to public opinion over this?" Yes, of course they have. The public opinion, even among their own people who normally would support them, is still massively against this. They don't get it. They can't understand it because all they see is that they cannot ever be wrong. And having announced this and stood by it, they have to see it through to the end. But they're wrong, and they won't accept it because they can never, ever accept how wrong they are. Another said, "How many women and girls' safety are you prepared to sacrifice to predatory men by not providing safe spaces for women and girls?" They don't care. They literally don't care. Being right is all they care about, and that is why they're pushing it. In a letter to Miss Sturgeon, someone said they were appalled by her handling of the situation, writing, "The presence of any biological male in prison," that means in a women's prison, "is harmful to their mental health and well-being, regardless of how that man identifies and regardless of the offence with which he is charged or convicted. That is not to say, and I need to stress this point, that all transgender women are potential abusers. Far from it. Not that far. Transgenders are 10 times more likely to be sex offenders than normal people. Government's own figures, not my opinion." Anyway, he said the net effect, however, is by way of, and again redacted, blasts its way into the media spotlight. Not only highlights the fundamental flaws in the GRR Bill, it also runs the risk of negatively impacting the public's perception of transgender women, making the problem worse. Other emails to Sturgeon accuse her of a colossal mistake and that there are no words that can explain the stupidity of this decision. And they're all in on it. And there's Keith Brown, another one, doesn't get it. Of course he doesn't get it. Lives in his ivory tower, thick as champ, and doesn't understand how normal people think and function. But none of them do, because none of them are normal. They're all, in a little coterie of incestuous relationships, all married to each other, all protecting each other's backs, and all protecting the pervs. We see this. Oh, Patrick Grady, we have him, and throw Lisa Cameron to the wolves. You know, and you've got Jordan Linden, the other one, protected all the way up to Peter Murrell, protecting him. Oh, it was only one little incident of touchy-feeliness. No, turns out many incidents of touchy-feeliness, and the police are investigating grooming. Protected all the way up the line. Everyone who protected him needs to stand in the dock next to him. And that includes Peter Murrell. And the likes of Swinney, perhaps. Rumour has it. Well, let's just say, I'm not going to say any more because I don't want to get in trouble, but there are rumours involving various senior people, of which Swinney may or may not be one. Allegedly. Not going to say any more. I don't know. No, none of it's true. None of it's true. There are rumours. I mean, it's true that there's rumours, but I don't believe those rumours. Do you? Anyway, I've got to protect myself. And they're just going on about more and more of these letters, all saying that all these people are awful people who aren't protecting women and children. Well, we know that. And there she is, the chief abuser of Scotland. The woman who wants women's safety to be destroyed for the sake of letting men go into women's safe spaces and expose themselves to children. What a lovely lady she truly is. I'm coming up. You have to wonder how stupid you have to be to start making these proposals when even your own side are so vehemently against them. And you can see yourself that the vast, vast majority of people are against it, and yet you still push it. And then you decide that when the UK government says no, you can't have it, and you take it to court. You've got to ask yourself, is it worth it? Well, you know, when you watch a 20-odd% vote share, vote lead evaporate in 6 months, you've got to say, no, it probably isn't. And the blessed Saint Nicola, a woman who's pushing now, actively pushing, or actively was pushing for the abuse of children by predatory males, I think even she started to see that perhaps she got it wrong, and that she shouldn't have been listening to the pervs and peds in the Greens. She should be listening to her own pervs and peds. They're slightly not as bonkers. Anyway, I shall stop there. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this has been enlightening. If it has, please hit the like button, and while you're there, hit the subscribe button. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, and stay well out of the way of anyone in the SNP, especially if you've got kids. Bye.